Oh well, first video on a new channel. Might as well start with something that shouldn't be contentious, but probably is. Can I be trans if I'm... Yes. Yeah, but what if I... Still yes. There are an astonishing number of variations on this question. Effectively, they all boil down to the same thing. I have this trait which is typically assigned to the gender that I do not identify with. Does that invalidate my gender? Again, no. No, it absolutely does not. I have a certain amount of personal investment in this question, insofar as I first identified that I was vastly more comfortable projecting a male identity and being spoken to accordingly when I was 19, 20-ish. At the time I had no idea what being transgender even was. All that I knew is that all of my online interactions were using this persona, and I was so much more comfortable as that person than I was in my day-to-day life. At the time I assumed that it was just that I was running away from real life and that the internet seemed in many respects more welcoming and more comfortable. There was probably an element of that, but it's amazing how much that comfort has bled over into real life now that I'm outwardly who I feel like. However, when I first came to this realisation, 15 years ago, oh Jesus, I had a bit of a personal crisis. This personal crisis was that this interpretation of myself that I had was still not what you would describe as masculine. I had no more desire to be a lumberjack than I had to be, well, a woman. At the time I envisaged this spectrum, that if you were assigned female at birth, that you were either a super hyper feminine girly girl or the stereotypical butch stone dyke, and that effectively you slid along this line until you got to here and then just kept pushing and pushing and pushing until you snapped over and had to admit that you were actually a man. In reality, if you look at cisgender men and women, there are lots of women out there who are far more masculine than lots of men. The gamut of presentation runs from extremely feminine to extremely masculine, regardless of your gender. We've come a really long way. Generally speaking, as a society, we now understand that boys can like pink and dolls and girls can enjoy fixing cars, and that doesn't invalidate them in any way. Although we often come to that conclusion when it comes to cisgender individuals, often with trans people, all of a sudden you start hearing, yeah, you sure? This of course spirals even further when it comes to your sexuality. If you identify as a woman, are still attracted to women, or identify as a man and are still attracted to men, then again both the niggling internal voice and also no shortage of external voices will tell you that this means that, are you sure? Are you really sure? Quite simply, none of these things are relevant. A trans person can be anything that a cis person can be, and that does include not fitting into gender stereotypes. If you do happen to fit them, that's also fine. Gender identity is a purely internal thing. You are who you say you are, not because of how you look and how you act, but because of who you feel like you are. No amount of dolls, My Little Pony, or love for football are going to change that. Do what makes you happy.